what is the school support team? So when we think about 4 layers of collaborative structures and processes that are integral to collaborative response, we've talked about and would argue that every school needs these 4 layers represented. So many of you may have heard me share in the past that when we established this within my own school or our school, it was involving the principal, the assistant principal, learning support teacher, and a family school liaison. Prior to, we would, as requests would come from classrooms, informal observations would be happening. When there was students that we knew that we needed support beyond the classroom, we would meet to determine what is it that we're going to do. However, the problem that surfaced through this not scheduling that team together is it was highly reactive. The communication would break down frequently. Sometimes the assistant principal would have a quick hallway conversation with the learning support teacher, but then someone wouldn't loop me in as principal, or we'd be trying to play catch up with our family school liaison, and then the communication out to our teachers became fragmented. There was lots of times where there was confusion around, is anybody making sure that we're paying attention to what else this student needs? And sometimes through that process, it didn't necessarily mean that we were really leveraging our resources to be able to support not just students needing additional supports, but in time determining which teachers might need additional support as well.
Yeah, and when we think about the school support team as the hub, that's what we mean, is when they come together, it is about being able to determine for this particular situation, what is it that we need to do? What are the next steps?
Absolutely.
And the next steps might be a variety of different directions. And so we think about that hub being able to be that decision-making group that collaboratively decide which is the direction that we believe is most important for this student or this group of students at this point in time. So, as you mentioned, it might be providing additional support to the classroom teacher around particular strategies that might be best for this one student. So let's help that teacher to support that student. Or it might be, you know what, we've put a lot of things in place for this student already. I think it's time for us to call the psychologist and put in a referral for an ed psych.
Right.
So it is that team that determines, do we involve external supports or do we provide additional supports at our school level? And if we do, then what is it? How do we move forward?
Yeah, and when we talk about then scheduling that, because the students that we are addressing within that conversation do require more intensive supports, it's not a conversation that can wait so that, every 4 weeks we meet or once a month. It needs to be weekly or at the very least bi-weekly. The great news is typically those that are involved have much more flexibility in their schedules. So it's much, much easier to timetable than it is if we were involving classroom teachers. So we often say, sketch out that 45 minutes to an hour, put it on a consistent day. And again, by scheduling that, it also sends that message to our staff when we can say, ooh, that's not a student that we're going to focus in on the collaborative team meeting, but we'll add it to the agenda of our next school support team. Again, it allows us to reassure all of our team that there's spaces where we will have the right conversation about which students are needing those supports.
And there's a level of confidence that is provided to a teacher that they know that that team is meeting regularly and that at any point in time, when I need help with a student, I know that that team is meeting all the time to be able to talk about students who have more in-depth needs than we can address in a collaborative team meeting.
So again, we're not saying that the hallway, the ongoing, the ad hoc conversations no longer exist. Of course they do. But now we have a space where we can say, well, let's talk about that in our next school support team, because we know we'll have the right people to be able to leverage all of that expertise to determine what is it that we're going to do.
And which is really putting us in that proactive mindset that we know what students we need to talk about and what are the next steps for them.
Absolutely.